Our phone number is 312-663-0336. I know it says 0338 on here, but that's our client line. The number is 312-663-0336. And our website is right there, www.chicagooabortionfund.com. And feel free to utilize the resources that you see right here, because I know we're an abortion fund, but utilize us as a resource as well. Even if you need to vent or any questions, whatever the case may be, you can call us and we can help out.
So I guess another part to that, like we were talking about, you know, the difference in between, you know, maybe your income level or your relationship status in terms of reporting domestic violence, or, you know, being someone who can be supportive. And I think that another thing to remember about that is that people, you know, like, we just never know what's going on with other people, and we never know like what their response will be, and we don't know what areas they live in, right? So if you get a phone call and if you're at a police station and, you know, an area with high crime, who gets the dispatch, right? Like, who does the police car come to get
first? Are
they gonna come get me, or are they gonna come get someone who's been shot, or someone who's been, you know, like, who gets the priority? And so that's another thing to remember when you're dealing, you know, with these situations, that people have experiences with reporting. People have experiences with, you know, what happens afterwards, right? Like, what happens if I get a restraining order and he shows up again?
Exactly. And I feel like that's a systematic issue, because our system is really failing some of our victims, because,
for sure,
you know, we often advise people or give them support and ask them to utilize these resources that's out there for them, but it's failing them. Like you mentioned, if you in a neighborhood with a high crime rate, they're going to respond to that, I guess, more important crisis versus, you know, you getting abused. And as sad as it is, but it's the truth. As well as if you're in a situation and you report it, they're just going to ask you to fill out some paperwork and maybe get a restraining order. Does anyone follow up with that? Probably 8 to 7 times out of the time, no. You know, and so then this cycle perpetuates. And if you're a victim and this is the help that you're getting, it's really not doing anything for you. And so then that kind of goes into how the cycle perpetuates of abuse. And then you stay in that situation because you feel like there's no help for you. There's no hope. Like, what is the reason for me to, you know, reach out to anybody, because those resources aren't.
And I'm glad that you like brought up the idea of abuse being in a cycle. So, you know, it can, like, you can have an encounter, right? You can have that moment where there's physical or there's emotional or there's verbal abuse. And then, you know, at that point you're like, I'm getting a restraining order, like, you know, this is done, I'm not going to do it anymore. And then you're waiting on someone to follow up on your call. But by that time, the cycle has went around, and your partner is now the loving person that you remembered them. And so, you know, when someone's like, oh yeah, we got a call that, you know, something is going on in this house. You know, it's like, oh no, we're good. Like, everything is fine. Like, you know, we're not doing that. And you know, I want to make sure to stress that people who are survivors of domestic violence, or are victims of domestic violence, however they would identify, these are not people that don't, you know, like, we always talk about, like, knowing better. Like, you know, this is not a issue of knowing better. It's an issue of being human and having emotions, right? And so, you know, you can't, you know, even if last week, you know, there was a confrontation, when the love turns back on, like, relationships are built out of love. So that's what we want. Right. So we're like, okay, it's over with. Like, we're in love again. So I think that's just another thing to kind of remember about, you know, dealing with people who, you know, are in those situations and being able to help them. And once again, if you are someone who has a similar situation to that, you can call the domestic violence hotline at 773-278 4566, and that is 24 hours, so you can call at any time. And like Damillia said, you can call and vent, you can call and report, you can call and do any of those things that you feel you need to do at that particular moment, to keep yourself safe and to keep your partner safe as well.
Right. And also want to touch bases on another outlook of perpetuating the cycle of domestic violence. You have, well, I think we have a caller. Let's take the call for right now.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, how you doing? You were speaking of perpetuating the cycle of violence, and don't you think that part of the cycle of violence is the violence against the unborn?
You know, this program is sponsored by the Chicago Abortion Fund, and we support a woman's right to choose. And so the answer to that question would be no.
So going back to what I was saying about touching bases on a different outlook of perpetuating a cycle of violence. I know you mentioned how you know, you're in this repeated cycle of abuse and help doesn't respond, or when they do respond, you know, it's in the whole love portion of it. But I wanted to touch bases on the situation where children are involved. And so, you know, we as supporters of people who are victims, we often encourage them to, you know, get out this situation. Ideally, that's what you want, to get out this situation. But like you said, people have different you know, situations. But what happens is children, they're really impressionable, and so you get this situation where all they see mommy or daddy in this situation where he or she is being abused, and they begin to emulate that, feeling that that's how
you
love is supposed to be. And then that's the misconception that children and often, you know, people get, that this is love because this is the person you are in love with. And so if this is how they're displaying their love or affection for you, then this is what you're mistaken as love. And so I wanted to say that to say, when these kids are in this situation where, you know, their parents are victims of domestic violence, they in turn grow to feel like that's okay, and because that's what they saw growing up. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that's another reason for a victim to, as an encouraging factor, to get out their situation. Because at this point, it's not even necessarily for yourself alone, but it's for your children as well. And so, I mean, I don't really want to, I want to say get out, but like you said, you never know the person's situation. But that's why we have a lot of resources out there, a lot of housing situations. If you're in a situation where this person is housing you and, you know, they're becoming physically, emotionally, or verbally abusive, you know, you can utilize these resources to get out of that situation and you still be okay in the process. We have a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hi. I'm calling because the Chicago Abortion Fund, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, but
I can't really hear you. Can you speak up a little bit?
She said she's getting a little nervous. It's okay.
It's okay. I'm nervous too. I'm on TV.
Anyway, I was wondering, is the Chicago Abortion Fund, is that only good before the abortion or after the abortion?
Good question.
That's a great question. Thank you.
The Chicago Abortion Fund it's both. It helps you, they help fund women seeking a second trimester termination. But it also is their resource for you if, you know, you're having a hard time emotionally after the situation. That is a really tough decision to make for a woman. And you can call, and like I said, you can vent. You know, if you're having emotional issues with it, you can call and we can direct you to the right resources. If you need to get birth control afterwards, you can call us and we can direct you to the right resources. If you need housing, job opportunities, anything that you may need, call us. And if you don't have the answer, we definitely know somebody who has that for you, and we can definitely put you in that right direction. That was an excellent question.
Because as said before, the Chicago Abortion Fund supports a woman's right to choose. And so if your choice is to have an abortion, then we have support for you before and after. And if your choice is to have some other